WWE Raw was released in 2002 for Xbox and Microsoft Windows. Published by THQ and developed by Anchor Incorporated and originally named WWF Raw, the game was a completely new experience for grapple fans because it was built from the ground up with a completely fresh engine. Nothing from the PlayStation SmackDown series was used for this Microsoft exclusive release. I didn't own this one because at the time of release I didn't own an Xbox. My older brother did though. We had a lot of fun playing multiplayer matches on SmackDown, so we took a gamble and he bought WWF Raw. He was never a big wrestling fan, but he did enjoy the games. We got together the day he bought it, we fired up the Xbox, I was given the Duke controller, and I'm sorry, I hated that controller, but we set up a 2-player game and yeah, it really wasn't what we were expecting. Don't get me wrong, we played quite a few matches, but we only really played it for one night before going back to the PS2 for our wrestling fix, while Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 got more action on the Xbox. I did end up getting my own Xbox though, and I played the sequel to WWE Raw quite a lot, more on that later, but I wanted to give Raw another look and try to find out exactly why my brother and I gave up all those years ago. I'm going to play the PC version today because I no longer have my original Xbox, but again, more on that later. WWF Raw was not developed by Ukes, instead development duties went to Anchor. The game was then ported to PC by Microvision. Anchor was a Japanese development company founded by the Oniguchi brothers. Masahiro Oniguchi had previously worked on the Tekken series. Anchor Incorporated's list of games isn't that long. They created Toy Fighter, an arcade fighting game that featured toys. They also developed the first UFC game, simply titled Ultimate Fighting Championship for Sega Dreamcast. They worked on the Pride MMA game on PS2 following their work on UFC, and they took on the task of developing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood on PS2. This was their full catalogue of games before working on WWE Raw. Raw's notable for being the only WWE game, excluding WWF with Authority, to get released on PC until 2K15 was released over a decade later. So if you weren't into consoles or if you only had a PC, well, you were stuck with Raw for a very long time. Raw was originally set to release in late 2001, but delays meant the game wouldn't hit store shelves in North America until February of 2002. The PC version didn't release until October, hence why the PC box art has the WWE logo while the Xbox cover has the WWF logo. In-game, the PC version also has the old WWF logo though. First, let's take a look at the roster because it's not a bad collection of superstars we've got here at all. I'll go through what's available here and you can take a look for yourself. The game lacks legends, but legends weren't commonplace in games around this time period. There are a few unlockable characters here too, and apologies, I couldn't find a game save to show the whole roster off, but the unlockable characters are Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Fred Durst McMahon. Other notable characters we've got here include Haku, K-Quick, Taka Michinoku, and Steve Blackman. You can see here the game would have been a little outdated by the time it was available for purchase. It's a 2001 roster through and through, and it's a roster that just reminds us of the tail end of the Attitude Era. Still, it isn't a bad selection we've got here at all. Before we start a matchup, let's see what else the game has to offer in terms of modes and options. You can see the match types here, and there's no nice way to put it. WWE Raw is seriously lacking in terms of matches. You have your usual 1-on-1, 2-on-2, triple threats and battle royals, and that's it really. You can switch on hardcore rules in the options and also set submissions only or no countouts, but you won't be competing in ladder matches or cage matches or anything like that, and that's a real shame. At this point, wrestling game fans were used to having a ton of match types available, and match types really add to the replayability of a wrestling game, particularly in multiplayer modes. So Raw immediately loses points for not giving fans enough to do. Championship modes and King of the Ring modes are self-explanatory. There's no career or story mode available. It's arcade rules in WWE Raw. Beat a guy, move on to the next. You'll need to win the WWE Championship, the Hardcore Championship, and Women's Championship to unlock the McMahons. And if you want Fred Durst, you'll need to win every championship. In the options, you can watch a video that will learn you how to play the game, and you can also watch a trailer for a Hot Wheels game. Honestly thought this could have been a trailer for WWE Raw, but no, it's fucking Hot Wheels. The museum mode is really good though, I like this. You can check out the character models here, some are good, some are not so good. You can get a little information too about the superstars, like Steve Austin here. It says, since the birth of Austin 316, trademark at the 1996 King of the Ring, registered trademark, Stone Cold Steve Austin, trademark, has been the most dominant performer in sports entertainment. The Texas Rattlesnake, trademark, has won the World Wrestling Federation Championship, registered trademark, on numerous occasions, and has defeated the biggest and best superstars. Stone Cold, trademark, won his first Federation Championship at WrestleMania, registered trademark 14, in 1998, jump-starting a feud with Mr. McMahon, trademark. Now, Stone Cold, trademark, is more ruthless and aggressive than ever. The Rattlesnake, trademark, is spewing venom, and he's ready to attack anyone who tries to stop him. Also, it looks like Steve's trying to focus on something way off in the distance, like he's having trouble reading a road sign or something. One of the coolest things about museum mode though is the fact that you can watch full Titantron videos by just tapping a button. Granted, the quality isn't great, but every wrestler's theme song and entrance video can be played here. The sound quality is excellent for the Titantrons, whereas the in-game and title music is clipped and distorted beyond belief. Alright, here's what happens when you start a matchup. You get a very primitive looking versus screen, and sometimes the wrestlers are looking in the wrong direction. It's a nice touch, but the execution is pretty poor. Also, these screens give us a close-up of the characters' models, and man, some are fine for 2002 standards, such as Jeff Hardy. And I know we shouldn't be too harsh here, but who the fuck is that guy? This is supposed to be Triple H, and why are his eyes so small? Where's the giant Triple H nose? There's a few other characters who aren't up to scratch too, such as Al Snow here, and check out Billy Gunn. Ooh. But Triple H is easily one of the worst. After the versus screen, you'll get taken straight to the entrances, and I gotta say, I like how the arena looks. That's arena, by the way, not arenas. There's only one arena in this game. I like the camera angles used during entrances. I like how the fog creates a sense of depth, and the lighting during entrances can be great too. Pyro also looks good, in particular Kane's pyro I thought looked pretty decent, but that's where the praise stops, I'm afraid. The character animations are insanely bad in places. Look at The Rock raising his arm while posing on the turnbuckles. Look at the way The Undertaker walks when getting off his motorcycle. Actually, just look at the way everyone walks in the game. Character animation is bad everywhere you look, and it's something that we'll need to overcome while actually playing matches because it carries over into moves and taunts, and that alone is enough to put most people off. Just before continuing on, you can turn the fog off inside the arena, and you can even turn off pyro for whatever reason, but the fog might not be for everyone, so at least you've got the option to remove it. When we get into a match, the ring looks absolutely massive, and for some reason the turnbuckle pads are also gigantic. I remember the large ring in the game's sequel, and maybe it has something to do with the default camera angle because it looks fine during replays most of the time. The default camera also isn't very dynamic. You'll be playing the majority of the match with this view, and you don't have any options to change it. I think that's a shame because again, the arena looks good. Down here we have the voltage meter. This is kind of like a standard momentum meter, but the difference here is that you and your opponent or opponents share the same meter. This means momentum goes one way or the other. If your opponent is doing really well, then you're doing pretty badly, and vice versa. Make the voltage meter flash and you can pull off a finisher. Beside your character, you'll see a small bar and a little box beside it. This bar is your stamina. It goes down as you take moves and as you perform moves. Once it's depleted, you're an easy target. The stamina meter does fill up again quite quickly, but you will get weaker as the match progresses. The little box beside your stamina meter is kinda like a heartbeat. When it starts blinking quickly, you're in danger and you could lose the match if you give your opponent a chance to pin or submit you. The key to filling up the voltage meter and getting the crowd on your side is to vary your moves. Doing the same thing over and over will stop your momentum from filling up, and it can even make it deplete, giving your opponent a chance to perform a finisher. You've got a strike button, a grapple button, an action button, and a block button. Strikes will always beat grapples, but strikes can also be blocked and countered. Pressing X and A together will perform a counter, and it's a case of learning the timing because Raw does feel a lot slower than other wrestling games that you may be used to. Different directions perform different strikes, and every now and then you'll land a haymaker. You'll know you've done so when the screen blurs and the strike sounds a lot louder than usual. This means your opponent will likely become groggy. Sometimes you'll land a big strike and the screen will flash red, indicating that your opponent is busted open, but there's no blood in the game. I was reading that blood was removed and there were some early screenshots showing blood, but for whatever reason it was taken out of the game. Grapples are straightforward. You grapple your opponent, then either press strike to perform a strike, grapple again to perform a move, or the action button to Irish whip or get behind your opponent. You can also hold different directions to perform different moves. If your opponent guesses what move you're gonna do and they perform the same button press, then they'll get out of the hold. Handy for 2-player matches with those who like to spam the same shit over and over. You gotta be real close to grapple though, and that means you're always in danger of taking a strike. A mixture of low stamina and your stats being lower than your opponent can also lead to a grapple move not being performed, and that can get annoying. To perform a finisher, fill up the voltage meter and lock up with a groggy opponent. You then press A and B together, or grapple and action together. And hopefully you've done this quick enough because wrestlers don't stay groggy for very long in WWE Raw. You can fight outside the ring too, and many items you find in boxes or around the ring will get unlocked and placed in the museum and in Create a Wrestler mode. You can also interrupt entrances to take items away from your opponent, such as hats and sunglasses. And in total, there's 178 items to unlock. 178 worthless pieces of shit that have only been included to pad out the game. Some items will get you disqualified if you use them in the ring, some won't. And I don't know, maybe some people enjoyed unlocking these little items, but it's not for me. Having only one action button is a pain in the ass too. The action button serves as the pin button, the taunt button, the button to get out of the ring, climb the turnbuckles, pick up weapons. You can immediately see why this would cause problems. Generally then, how does WWE Raw play? Take a look. What you see here is exactly what it feels like to play, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel overly responsive. There's an awkwardness to matches that's hard to explain, but just watching this footage will give you all the information you need really. It's definitely slower than what you may be used to, and you know, a slower game isn't a bad thing at all, but when the animations are bad like this and when the overall fighting system isn't up to par, then that slower, more methodical game you're expecting turns a little annoying at times. I like the presentation of WWE Raw except for the default camera angle. When the cameras do change, it looks way better. I like the instant replays and the double feature that's pretty faithful to the ones found on WWE programming, but the matches themselves can be a slog to get through sometimes, and matches often just don't feel very fun. Every now and then you just want to quit out and try other characters. You really need to adjust to this game. You have to play by its rules. You gotta basically lower yourself and conform to its clumsiness, and because of that, it all feels very limited maybe. That's one word to describe it. Another word would be shit, but anyway, it's okay if you really had nothing else to play, but I think even WrestleMania 18 on GameCube was better than this. Again, some of the presentation ideas are good, and I do like the idea of sharing the voltage meter or the momentum meter, but playing a match can be a real test of patience sometimes. You gotta line up everything pretty much perfect and you don't feel rewarded for landing moves, you feel lucky. Timing your moves is an issue too. If you grapple too early while your opponent's getting to their feet, your grapple becomes a strike. If you grapple your opponent at the ropes, it also turns into a strike. Getting in close to perform a grapple can be challenging in itself when the CPU spams strikes, and the weapons don't even get me started. While it's fun beating the hell out of Perry Saturn with Moppy, there's also a whole lot of pointless shit lying around. Here's the Undertaker wearing a chef's hat, for example. Instead of creating 178 items, how about spending that time to, I don't know, make the wrestling a little better maybe? I'm probably being a little harsh here, and I totally understand if you had nothing else to play, then this probably would have gotten you by. I just think of the QA teams playing this and nobody standing up to say, guys, you know what, maybe we should rethink this. It has potential, but that potential isn't met. Tag team matches then double the frustration really. If you pair the right guys together, you'll get tag team entrances, and this is a nice touch. Kai and Tai can be paired up, as can the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, for example. You get a new default view that shows more of the ring when tag matches get underway, and not a lot more to say really. The guys waiting on the apron will run in to break up every pin, so matches can be even longer than normal. Tornado tag can be a little frustrating because you gotta keep an eye on your partner at all times, or you will lose. This would be a little more fun in multiplayer mode though. Battle Royals are not over the top rope, it's just a 4-way elimination match, whereas the winner of a fatal 4-way is the first person to get a pin or submission. Triple threats are just your normal triple threat matches really, and that's all you'll be doing in WWE Raw, I'm afraid. There's the championship modes too, of course, as previously mentioned. Beat a string of opponents and try to unlock a few characters. One interesting thing to note is that men can challenge for the women's championship, and the women can go for the men's championships too. King of the Ring lets you set up a bunch of different tournaments, so at least it's not just one-on-one matches, but there's no reward for completing tournaments, which means they're absolutely pointless. WWE Raw has a Create a Wrestler mode, so let's check that out. The first thing that stands out here is how fast everything loads. Maybe it's because I've been looking at Create a Wrestler modes in the GameCube games and things like that, but everything is pretty much instant here. There isn't a whole lot of selection when it comes to attires and whatnot, but there are some additional textures for each creation piece, so that lets you change things up a little. Honestly, for this era, it's one of the better Create a Wrestler modes I've came across, but as I always point out, I wasn't a big Create a Wrestler guy. I spent quite a bit of time in Raw 2's creation suite though, and one thing I remember about Raw 2 was the excellent Create an Entrance mode, for the time anyway. Well, not exactly create an entrance, but how you could change the arena lighting during entrances. Honestly, back then, this was a big deal, and in Raw 2, I wasted so much time making the arena light sync with the custom music you could put in the OG Xbox and things like that. In WWE Raw, you can edit the arena lighting during entrances, but you don't get a preview of what you're doing. I'm pretty sure Raw 2 let you look at your edits as you were putting them together, or maybe I'm remembering that wrong. This edit mode though is extensive, and if you had the patience for it, it could have been rewarding. It's been far surpassed nowadays by the 2K games, but back then, this was awesome. So the Create a Wrestler mode gets a thumbs up. I'm glad I found something I like about this game. There's quite a lot you can change here too in regards to stats, relationships with other wrestlers and moves. This would get expanded upon a lot in Raw 2, seeing as relationships played a big part in the career mode. I honestly can't think of anything else to say about WWE Raw, and I really wish I had more. I do like it when we get different wrestling games built by different developers. I always find them way more fascinating than the usual SmackDown games and the quote main series of WWE games, but sometimes you gotta admit when they get it wrong too. I know people like this game though. There's a community out there who builds some very impressive custom mods, and some of those mods are truly excellent, from brand new rosters to brand new arenas. I've seen a few mods that alter the gameplay in different ways also, and all that stuff's great. I just don't know enough about the mods to fairly go into detail in this video. I will say this though, I adapted to this game the more I played it. By the time I got done recording the last few matches, I was breezing through competitors and I had to turn up the difficulty, but I didn't feel like I was actually getting better at the game. I was just getting used to how it wanted me to do certain things. You want to go in guns blazing and pulling off all these moves, but you just gotta play it at the right pace and you'll have no problems. But that also doesn't really make a good game, does it? I think there's a certain freedom in wrestling games that we enjoy, being able to pull off moves when and how you want, building a match that you think would be pretty awesome in real life. You experiment a little with different sequences and things of that nature. WWE Raw simply doesn't allow you to do such things. It feels like you gotta jump through a few hoops to do basic actions, and yeah, it's just not for me. If you're looking for a more simulation style wrestling game, then I'd recommend Day of Reckoning over this every day of the week. Xbox owners and PC exclusive gamers got the shaft with Raw, in my opinion. So, I mentioned at the start of the video that I bought the sequel, WWE Raw 2, once I got an Xbox of my own. You ever move house and somehow a giant mammoth of a console somehow gets lost? No? Well, it happened to me. My Xbox went walkies along with all my games and a hard drive filled with music from the 2000s, the good old days of ripping CDs, burned CDs with tracks from LimeWire. Anyway, that old Xbox is gone, and seeing as Raw 2 didn't come out on PC, I was left with no other choice. I couldn't cover Raw 1 and not Raw 2, so just today I ordered an OG Xbox, WWE Raw 2, and the other exclusive WWE game on Xbox, WrestleMania 21. I've got a story about that game too, but I'll cover all that in the future. Once the Xbox gets delivered and hopefully working order, and once I get the capture devices set up, I'll get to work on Raw 2 and WrestleMania 21 videos, so keep an eye out for those, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and you'll know when the next videos get released. I do remember enjoying Raw 2 quite a bit, and I'm honestly not so sure how that was possible, seeing as I had a pretty bad time with Raw 1 today. But playing Raw 2 again will hopefully jog my memory, and I'm honestly looking forward to trying it again. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.